Aberdeen in recovery.
Aberdeen in recovery.
Aberdeen in recovery.
Aberdeen in recovery. We're here for you. Building that bridge from dependence to independence.
Good afternoon, you're listening to Recovery on AiR on Shmu 99.8 FM. I'm Lindsay from Aberdeen in Recovery, and joining me this week is Joan, Dermot and Stevie. Last week we spoke about loneliness and the power of connection. I think that's still hugely important at the moment. This week we were lucky enough, Dermot carried out an interview with a chap, Joe Schofield from the University of Stirling, and it's about a new research project that he's going to be carrying out. So we'll have that a little bit later on in the show, but it surrounds the use of benzodiazepines. So we'll have a little chat about that and the difficulties that come with that. So this week we're going to chat a bit about benzodiazepines and the work that Joe's going to be letting us know about a little bit later on in the show. So Dermot, it was you that actually met with Joe to have the discussion, and sort of what was the main sort of issues that are coming out?
Thanks, Lindsay. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's well. I think I'll start by saying that it is very true to say that in many forms, and I've had it described to me from people who are involved in the support services for addiction in Scotland, and his statement was that Scotland is awash with benzodiazepine. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to focus too much because there's enough tragedy and negative, very sad and painful aspects of grief and loss just now. But the last reported drug deaths of 1,187 deaths in Scotland in 2018, between 750 and 900 people who lost their lives to overdose of drugs. Benzodiazepine was involved in that, and I think in the region of over 75% of that, maybe not quite as much as that, but the use of etazlin or etazlamine, which is a benzodiazepine that is not available for prescription in Scotland, so that is illicitly obtained, that featured highly in these drug deaths. The people who had been using benzodiazepine on top of other drugs, often in a polydrug use, a cocktail of drugs. So it's certainly a crisis that really does need addressed. But Joe, who works at the University of Stirling, but he's also part of the Drugs Research Network in Scotland. He does a lot of work in research in various aspects of drugs and their effects. They are undertaking this research project, and I will say it is of their own motivation. They applied for funding to try and fund the project, but they were unsuccessful in that funding. So these guys very altruistically agreed to commence and continue with the project that they had planned. And the main purpose of it is really to speak with a number of individuals who have had lived experience of benzodiazepine use, either prescribed and or illicit, and equally the same sort of numbers of professionals who are prescribing benzodiazepine for various health issues. And hopefully from that conversation, the pluses and minuses, the negatives and the positives from both aspects, get a true idea of the circumstances and hopefully look for a way to move forward. Because as it stands just now, anyone who has issues with opiates, can be prescribed methadone, Suboxone, buprenorphine. Anyone who has issues with alcohol can be prescribed disulfiram, known as antabuse, and other medications which can assist them with alternates to the substance of choice, while they are gaining stability and coming off and going through withdrawal, etc. But the circumstances in benzodiazepine, often a lot of people know these as diazepam, that is also used as a medication. So when someone is presenting with an issue with benzodiazepine misuse of, the prescribers and the clinical professionals are very limited in how they can address that. So Joe's research is hopefully to get comment and input from both sides and hopefully come out with possible alternates to way to progress forward.
Yeah, thanks, Dermot. I guess that's one of the biggest issues, isn't it, that we'll chat about just now, in that yet there is no alternative. You know, as someone who used alcohol, I was prescribed a benzodiazepine to help me come off alcohol.
Yes.
But there is no alternative for the benzo. And I suppose that's the biggest hurdle. And yeah, you know, the professionals, these guys that are writing the prescriptions, you know, their back's very hard against the wall, and there isn't an alternative to that.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult thing. But I guess that's one thing of us with lived experience, is we need to try and help find solutions to these things. Stevie, I'm not sure about you. I believe you're...
Yeah, I'm a long time benzo user. I've used benzos for roughly 30 years. They was prescribed to stop anxiety, but now cause anxiety. So after long-term uses, it's like a reverse effect what they have. If there was such like an alternative to a benzo, that rather than just getting prescribed say 15-30 milligrams and getting reduced off your 15-30 milligrams and quite a rapid reduction, sometimes it's quite hard to be stuck on that benzos. There's nothing else there to, because your thing is benzos, so you're going to look for more and more and more. Do you know what I mean? You're going to, it's like giving, okay, you can have a bottle, but you can only drink half of the bottle just now. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's like that. So long-term use is really not good. The doctors and CPNs and that nowadays have got a wee bit more of a hold and control over it. Years ago, when I first got prescribed, it was quite willy-nilly just to give you whatever and however much, which is really not nice. I've had seizures and stuff when I've went without benzos. Found myself on the floor, came round with paramedics in my mum's house that I didn't even know. I was like, what are you even doing here? So I'd bit my tongue, to stop me from swallowing my tongue, and the blood was there was blood at the side of my mouth and stuff. So the part like that next, I don't remember none of that. I just remember the paramedics coming in, then getting put up to taken up to the hospital to get is it an ECG? The things on your head.
EEG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, EEG. Sorry, EEG. Yeah, I don't really want to go into the negative stuff about the benzos. It's just a really, it was prescribed years ago. It was prescribed years ago to older, which are now older ladies, grannies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then they like came back in the 90s, and then long-term usage is really not good anyway. I know that just through my own experience.
And thanks very much for sharing that, Stevie. And I suppose that's, it's when medications, which are supposed to be a solution for something, becomes the problem.
Yeah.
That's the difficulty. And I guess as well, it's research projects like this that make it so important to get that knowledge from you
Yeah,
in how that made, how it's made you feel. 30 years on any kind of medication is a huge and, insane amount of time.
yes,
But whilst there is no alternative, I guess that's when the sort of feeling of this parked on prescriptions and stuff comes from as well. So today we've been talking a bit about benzodiazepine use. We have an interview coming up with Joe Schofield, who's conducting some research around this. We were just chatting through that last song there about potential ways, and solutions for this. We know that there's not an alternative prescribable solution, a prescribable alternative, I should say, to benzodiazepines. But Joan, you're involved a lot in sort of mindfulness and alternative therapies, trauma-informed stuff.
Yeah,
Do you think that's a potential solution to some of the issues surrounding the
yeah. I think so. It was something I picked up from with Stevie there, and he mentioned about this isn't a new problem. This has gone back a long time, and I have memories of my family where it was prescribed by GPs for usually anxiety.
mm-hmm.
And they would keep prescribing them because there wasn't any other alternative. The anxiety was still there. The GP would try and take them down gradually off it, but there was nothing else. And so they would then still keep prescribing them because there wasn't any other alternative. Today, hopefully, there are more alternative solutions. I wouldn't call it just a solution, but like you were saying, Stevie, you still had the anxiety to deal with, and hopefully complementary to someone trying to come down off. We now have many more approaches, whether it's CBT, whether it's mindfulness-based stress reduction, or just mindfulness in itself. It's something that I really enjoy and find really helpful for me in general. Or various sort of trauma-informed practice. It's tapping into these, and I think it's a psychological therapies along with other approaches that I think is the real way for us to go. Yeah.
I think, and that's it. It's not a new thing. And when you look back, there's a definite, generational shift, even a couple of generations ago, where it was Valium that was the drug that was prescribed for anxiety, for depression, for a lot of the more mental health problems that are still here, that we still face. But the approaches that are taken are very different to what they were, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Say, like the doctors and CPNs, professionals will normally only prescribe 30 milligrams. Now, if you've been using benzos a long time, 30 milligrams it's not going to really do anything to you anymore. So that's where the illicit bit of buying illegals from internet, whatever it may be, then you're getting into unknown territory, because it isn't what it says it's supposed to be. It's made up things. They're made by not a pharmaceutical company, just someone in their house or a warehouse or something.
And that's the big risk, isn't it, for overdose?
Overdose. Yeah, I lost a friend a few years.
Yeah. You just don't know what you're taking.
Yeah.
And I think I would really like to emphasize is, and tying in with what Joan and Stephen has said, the addition of psychosocial intervention. Yeah, that's introducing individuals into groups, talking therapies, speaking with like-minded people who have experience of addiction, etc., etc. That, I believe, is an alternative, because I don't know of another medicine to be used in this scenario other than the benzodiazepine. So we'll have to look at some approach, but to put that pressure onto the medical professionals and the third sector support of that continual daily support for individuals, it's not feasible. It is absolutely not feasible. There is not enough money in the NHS pot to cover the psychosocial need of an individual in recovery. The professionals, the health professionals, can prescribe at levels that will keep the person individual. I will stress and emphasize so strongly, AiR and lived experience communities like AiR are not all and everything about abstinence. You do not need to be clean of all and every substance to attend groups and to attend training. These will be availed to you openly and readily, taken that you are at a point and a place that you can engage.
Yeah, and I fully support that as well. And I think it's with Joe Schofield coming in, asking people, what's your experience? Asking services, what's your experience? That's where the solutions are as well, because people have the solution within themselves.
Yes.
You know, and you need to speak to people.
Yeah.
And that's where groups with AiR, with ADA and other services, getting people together and talking. And, you know, that's where some of the answers are. Because when people want to stop, then having that discussion.
And adequately supported lived experience communities to provide these things are the way forward.
I'll add under benzo, your opiate replacements, methadone, dihydrocodeine, Suboxone. Withdrawal of a benzo is a lot worse than off of an opiate. Lasts longer.
So there is solutions out there to be found, and obviously that's the work that Joe Schofield is carrying out with the research in line with people from, you know, the lived experience community with living experience of benzodiazepine use. Next up, we're going to play the interview that Dermot had with Joe Schofield. So here it goes.
Thanks for that, Lindsay. As was Lindsay discussed in the opening section of the today's programme, we are now joined by Joe Schofield. Schofield or Schofield, Joe?
Schofield's good.
Schofield,
Yeah,
right. Okay, I'll get it right. So Joe is a research coordinator with the University of Stirling and also works with the Drugs Research Network in Scotland. I met Joe last year sometime, I think it was, when you were conducting out a research on the use of, I'll pass it to you. Maybe you can remind us what it was you were researching at that point.
Yeah, hi Dermot. I popped up to Aberdeen last year to meet some people from Aberdeen in recovery to get views on a project we were looking to do around the use of technology in preventing drug deaths. A quick update on that is we got some really helpful feedback from Aberdeen in recovery members. We submitted some funding to a funding application to the Scottish Government, and we've now received funding to do a pilot project in Aberdeen.
Amazing.
And that's looking at, can we use wearable devices to monitor the health of people who use drugs as they've used them, and hopefully reduce drug-related deaths by detecting the onset of overdose. So that project will be starting later this year as soon as lockdown's lifted, and I'd be very happy to maybe speak to you and your members in future and let you know how that's going.
Absolutely. Congratulations on the success of the first research project and then the follow-on funding. And it's amazing that you're getting the opportunity to pilot that. We will, once we get nearer the point of that being launched, we can maybe get you up again on maybe a Zoom rather than you having to travel all the way from Edinburgh on the train.
Cool.
And we can do another little session and let the people know a little bit more about that project, because it was sounding like something that could, again, it could save lives. Yeah.
Lovely, happy to.
Great stuff. Okay, so Joe is joined us today to give us a little bit of information on a second research project that is being conducted just now. And as some of our listeners will be aware, or may not be aware, sadly to say, there is quite dangerous levels and certainly readily availability of benzodiazepines in Scotland. I was speaking with some guys last week with a team of chaps that were all involved in the recovery field, building recovery communities, and a chap made the comment that Scotland is awash with illicit benzodiazepine. And it's certainly a problem that is growing and doesn't seem to get the same media coverage as some of the other illicit substances that are so readily bandied about on press and media. So I won't try to kid you on and let you know that I know plenty of everything, because I don't. So I'll pass it over to an expert. And Joe, do you want to give us a little bit of an idea of the project and the reasons behind it, etc.?
Yeah, thanks, Dermot. So exactly as you say, we know that a lot of people use benzos in Scotland, including those that weren't prescribed for them. So either diverted, where they've been prescribed to somebody else who might give you a wee strip, or purchased on the street, what we call illicit benzos. And recent estimates suggest that around 50% of people who've got problem drug use in Scotland use benzos, either sometimes alone, but most often in combination with other drugs. And we know that because benzos, they depress the central nervous system. So on the one hand, they cause relaxation, which is a benefit that some people seek, but the risk there is they can cause relaxation and depression of the nervous system, and that can slow down breathing and heart rate. And so we're increasingly seeing benzos implicated in drug-related deaths. So yeah, we know that in 2018, of the roughly 1,200 people who unfortunately had a drug-related death, benzodiazepines were found in almost 4 out of 5 cases, 920 people. So we're seeing drug-related deaths being driven by benzodiazepine use. And of all those people who died with a benzo in the system, half of them had what we call a prescribable benzo, so something that you might be able to get from the GP, which could be diverted and sold on. But really worryingly, 3/4 of those people who died with a benzo had what we call a street benzo, so something like itizolam, which is a benzo that's not prescribable here. So we know that a large number of people who die are getting benzos purely through the street market rather than prescribed from the GP.
Yeah, yeah. And that's obviously statistics you can pull from the data that's coming, being compiled, yeah. And it's an absolute tragedy that the deaths are still continuing, and to have that, to have a family member dying in these circumstances, is that there's no can only offer compassion, because unless you're actually living and being experiencing that, there's no actually, it's hard to empathize unless you've been in that circumstance. But I think equally as important, and which has to be recognized, is beyond the actual deaths, these benzodiazepines are causing endless amounts of emotional pain, mental pain, physical damage, and you know that it's massive. It is really massive. So anything, everything that can be done to make inroads into how to treat this differently, I think can only be a benefit. We're chatting just before we started earlier that you were looking into having involving professionals, prescribers in your research. Do you want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. So this project we've got, you just highlighted a really important point, which is about treatment options. So we know a lot of people are going to be using benzos, sometimes to help them deal with physical or emotional pain, sometimes to help them sleep, or to cope with withdrawal from other drugs. So people, I think, are taking benzos sometimes to self-medicate, and then sometimes because they're actually dependent on the drugs. And you mentioned about treatment options. And the reason we're doing this work is I think everyone knows there's a lot of benzos around. Everyone knows that they're causing harm. What seems to be missing is how can we best treat and support people who do use benzos as to help them into recovery. So if someone's dependent on heroin, you can offer them medication-assisted treatment, so methadone or buprenorphine, with some psychological support and social support. And we know that works and helps people into recovery. We don't really have those options for benzos.
No.
So this project that we're doing, our goal is to inform the development of addiction and treatment and care and support services so they can meet the needs of people who use benzos. And the project's in two parts. The first part that's just coming to an end has been an online survey of people who prescribe within addiction services. So we've had 51 responses from GPs, nurses, pharmacists, psychiatrists who prescribe in addictions, asking for their views. And I won't go into too much detail on what they're saying because it might influence the follow-on work. But yeah, we're keen to ask prescribers and those medical experts what they think people need and what they think could help. Crucially, we also want to ask people who use benzos, who are the experts in their needs and care, what do you want? What would help you? What would help people in your situation? So at the end of the project, we can pull together two lots of info, a survey of addiction medics and nurses, and interviews with people who use benzos, and that'll help us say the professionals can see these suggested ways forward, and people who use drugs have got these views and concerns and suggestions. How can we bring the two of them together to develop better treatment and support for people?
Yeah, and I think that is absolutely amazing, and I can only applaud your approach. And it's certainly everything that AiR and its members and nationally the recovery movement, the recoverists, everyone involved are so keen to further and progress this collective approach. And what you've described is where we'll find alternate ways of treating drugs and addiction in all its forms and manifestations. If we can have that input from both sides, we have a more open-ended viewpoint, and from that that collective information, I think we can get strident opportunities to do it differently, which can only be good. Can only be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've spoke about the professionals being involved, and I do know that you have been making some interviews with people who have personal experience of benzodiazepine use. So how's that progressing? I know you have made some inroads into that.
Yeah, we've so far done around 10 interviews with people who use benzos across Edinburgh and Glasgow and some of the outlying central belt areas. I'm really grateful to Aberdeen in Recovery. I know you've already been promoting the survey to members and people who might want to participate in Aberdeen. And so at the end of this, we'll have conducted probably around 15, 30 to 45-minute long interviews with people. So yeah, when we produce the final report, we'll have some really rich views from people who've been at the sharp end and advising policymakers and providers on how we as a society can better meet the needs of those people.
Great, Joe. Great. And I don't know, but I picked up earlier on that you guys, you haven't actually been funded to do this. This is you guys getting together and doing this work from your own passion base.
Yeah, like most voluntary sector services, drugs research, there's a huge number of people in Scotland really committed to it. Unfortunately, because of the way it works, generally projects only happen if you're able to get funding to make them happen. So we tried a couple of times to get funding for this project. We were up against big competition, didn't get the funds, which was a shame, but we were so committed to doing something at Stirling about the issue of benzos. And the Drugs Research Network has got people who use drugs and clinicians and policymakers and academics involved. And we've got a group who said benzos are such a big issue, we can't wait to do this work until we get funding to do a big old singing, dancing project. So we're doing it in our own time because there's such a big need.
And on a personal level, I applaud you and your colleagues, but also from my heart, I thank you for devoting the time to conduct the research project, because I think it's badly needed, and it's an avenue that that requires more investigation into how it can be approached, and hopefully support mechanisms put in place that are more attuned to the drug of choice rather than the addiction cycle, because as you stated at the start of our chat here, there are alternates that can be prescribed that offer safer options to opiate use. There's also like medications that can be used in regards problematic alcohol use, but in regards the benzodiazepines, there's so many people prescribe these for treatment of mental health issues that, you know, there is a difficulty unless we can get that way of being able to offer an alternate or a reduction process with through regulated prescripted use. Yeah, so, totally. I can only thank you for giving us your time today, and hopefully once you have your results back, we'll be able to get together, have a discussion, and know that AiR and all our resources will be behind you and your project, and then hopefully we can get you back up again and do a follow-on today's chat.
Really grateful to you and everyone at AiR for the support and your messages of support. Very happy to share updates on progress and the final report with you, and I'd be extremely happy to come back and speak to yourself and some of your members who want to discuss the findings.
Excellent, Joe. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll catch up very soon. Thanks
very much, Dermot.
That was fascinating stuff. What did you guys, what's your thoughts on the work? Joan, you're nodding furiously.
Yeah, no, absolutely wonderful. And I know Joe, and I know the work that Stirling do, and they do value very much the voice of lived experience and living experience. And I think that's why he's continued with this on their own back, because they know how important speaking to people are. So I would really love to hear the findings of the pilot study, and hopefully that will be used to continue the work, because I think it's such an important piece of work to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big wowzers for me at the end there when you know, Dermot pointed out that yeah, they are doing it off their own back, you know, without any funding. It shows that there is huge passion for change out there, and to get the opportunity to work with these guys is amazing. So yeah, we're very much look forward to the results and stuff coming through as we hear about it. And as we hear about it, we will keep you guys out there posted, and we'll hopefully get Joe back on not too far distant future for another interview to update you guys on how the research is going. So I hope you've enjoyed the show today, and as usual, I'll give you some information. If you want to find out anything about Aberdeen in Recovery and what we do, you can check out our website. It's www.aberdeeninrecovery.org. If you have any requests for the show, whether it's songs, topics, if you would like to come onto the show for an interview, you can email me at chatterbox@aberdeeninrecovery.org. You can also keep up to date and follow us on Facebook at Aberdeen in Recovery, or Twitter and Instagram is Republic_AiR. You can also watch our YouTube channel, Aberdeen in Recovery, and there you'll get previous podcast versions of our radio show, along with some other media that we've recorded. If any of you guys out there are struggling at the moment and need a bit of support, or if you have a family member that has addiction issues and you're finding it tough, you can get immediate assistance by calling Alcohol and Drugs Action, and their helpline is 0333 344 8355. I'll say that again. It's 0333 344 8355. Or you can email them helpline@alcoholanddrugsaction.org.uk. So a big thanks to all you guys for joining me today. A big thanks to Joe Schofield for taking time out to give us that interview. And remember and tune in to next week's Recovery On Air show on Shmu 99.8 FM.
The flame in our name
is to shine a light onto the pathways of recovery,
which will build a bridge from dependence to independence
for the individual caught in the shadows of addiction
and looking for a way